Today on America's Test Kitchen, Elle makes Julia a Milk Chocolate Crémeux Tart. Jack talks about different coconut products. And Dan makes Bridget sweet cream ice cream. It's all coming up right here on America's Test Kitchen.
Chocolate Crémeux is a sophisticated French tart with two key components. The chocolate filling has a texture that falls somewhere between a rich ganache and an airy mousse, and the crust is a classic pâte sucrée with a buttery flavor and a lovely short texture. Today, Elle's going to show us how to put those together.
That's right, and this pastry typically contains more sugar than pâte brisée, the French equivalent of American pie crust.
That's it.
More importantly, the butter gets treated differently, getting thoroughly worked into the flour as opposed to being left in small chunks.
That's right, so the result is you have a shorter crust rather than a flaky crust.
Yeah, so we're going to start with 1 egg, a teaspoon of vanilla, and I'm just gonna whisk this together. So normally this crust would call for cream, but in this case, this egg is gonna provide us all the moisture that we need. All right, that's good. In our food processor, we have 7.5 ounces of AP flour. To it, I'm gonna add 2 2/3 ounces of confectioner's sugar.
Nice.
And finally, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Okay, and I'm just gonna give this a couple of pulses just to make sure it's mixed well. And now I'm gonna add the butter. 8 tablespoons of unsalted butter, cut into 1/2-inch pieces, chilled. So I'm just gonna process this butter into the flour mixture for 20 seconds.
Okay.
So the butter is finally incorporated in there, as you can see. So I'm gonna turn the processor back on, and then I'm gonna add our egg. So I'm just gonna process this for 18 seconds.
Here she comes.
There she goes.
Ah.
There we go.
I love it when it gets into that ball stage.
And that's exactly what we have. A beautiful ball of dough that kind of looks like cookie dough.
It does.
Yeah. And I need 2 18 by 12-inch pieces of parchment paper. All right, so I'm gonna start to flatten it using my hand first to about 1/2 inch. A little rubbing, a little patting. And I kind of can just put my finger there until we're there.
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
Yeah. So I'm gonna take my rolling pin and I wanna roll it into a rectangle. I'm rolling this almost to the edge of the parchment paper, just so I can smooth out any wrinkles. It's looking great. Now it just needs to go into the freezer for 30 minutes. So I'm gonna just transfer it, thank you kindly, to this sheet tray. And into the freezer it goes.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so this dough has been in the freezer for 30 minutes and it's actually ready for us to start working.
Yes, nice and firm.
Yeah, so I'm going to just peel this top layer of parchment off, just loosening it a bit. I'm gonna flip it over.
Ah, the beauty of working
Yeah.
with 2 pieces of parchment.
It makes life so much easier.
It does.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you.
Done with that one?
All right, and so we are going to start to form our dough in the pan.
All right.
We decided that using the pan as the cutter was just the most obvious thing to do.
Makes
right?
sense.
We also figured out that cutting towards one far end of this dough leaves us some room to cut pieces for the edge of the tart.
Ah, clever.
Clever. All right, so I just like to make myself some 1-inch markers. All right, and then I can use a ruler as a guide, right?
Oh, nice, to make a nice straight line.
Yep. I've made enough mistakes to know that taking your time is the only way to go. There we go.
Nice.
Very nice. Okay, so I'm gonna put the bottom of the pan back in. I'm gonna use my offset spat to get my cutout out. I'm gonna transfer our cutout dough back into our pan. I'm very happy that this is still a little cold from the freezer. It's making it a lot easier to manage.
Yeah.
And you just place it into the pan. And it's okay if your dough comes up to the sides a little, but you should definitely use your hands to kind of press down in there, get all of those corners covered. All right, that looks great. Now that we have the base of the tart into the bottom of the pan, I'm going to put the edges around. This is so much easier than the old-fashioned way where we had to try and fit all of the dough into the tart pan, and it just was chaos.
Yep, this method is genius.
That's right. So as I'm laying in the sides, I'm pushing it into the grooves. I'm using one hand to guide myself and the other hand to put this dough into the grooves of the tart pan. All right, so I got a little hangover from the final piece. I'm just gonna cut it. Okay, this looks fantastic and ready to go into the freezer for 20 minutes.
Okie doke.
Okay, so this has been in the freezer for 20 minutes. It's nice and firm. We're gonna just do some final touches of trimming off the edges. And I'm going to just start here, make a little line, and just kind of press as I'm trimming, right? All right, it looks great. I'm happy with that.
It looks better than great.
Well,
it
thank
looks
you.
perfect.
Well, to make it stay that way, we have to do a little par baking. So we have some foil here that's been sprayed with vegetable spray.
Grease
right?
side down.
Grease side down.
All right.
Yep. Let me just find my space there. And pie weights go in. If you don't have pie weights, you can use rice, you can use beans. So this is all set to go in the oven. I have my oven set at 350 degrees. The rack is in the middle position. This is gonna go in for 30 minutes until golden set. And then after 30 minutes, I'm gonna take the pie weights out and let it bake for another 10 minutes.
Are you ready to take your cooking to the next level?
Introducing the complete America's Test Kitchen TV show cookbook.
Featuring every recipe from every episode of America's Test Kitchen. That's thousands of recipes. That texture is unbelievable. Reviews
Gadgets you didn't know you needed.
and tips.
Yes, there's some terrible choices, but there are also some amazing choices.
We've spilled all of our secrets and included our insider notes alongside each recipe.
Plus, there's a handy shopping guide so you know exactly what to grab when you're at the store.
And of course, it makes an excellent gift. Get your copy today at americastestkitchen.com.
Ooh, that looks lovely.
It's beautiful. This is what that extra 10 minutes of cooking did after the pie weights came out.
Now you can see it shrunk in a little from the sides, but that's okay because it didn't shrink down. And if it shrinks down, you won't have enough room for the filling.
We also need to let this cool on the wire rack for about 30 minutes.
Okay.
All right, so we're making chocolate cremeux.
I love it.
And it starts with 1 cup of half and half and 4 egg yolks.
Okay, just the yolks.
Just the yolks. So I'm gonna whisk this in. And I'm gonna whisk it until it's well incorporated. All right, I'm gonna add 3/8 teaspoon of salt. That's mixed well, and I'm just gonna put it over medium-low, and I'm gonna use my non-heat reactive spatula. And just continue to stir it, making sure I scrape up the bottom, right?
Right, you don't want scrambled yolks in their sauce.
So I'm just gonna continue to stir it until it's slightly thickened and reaches 170 to 175 degrees. That takes about 5 to 7 minutes.
Nicely done. No scrambled eggs.
No scrambled eggs, and it is now officially off heat.
Nice.
And I'm gonna whisk in 12 ounces of milk chocolate. This milk chocolate is what actually gives this filling its luxe creaminess. I'm also gonna stir in 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla. And you just wanna whisk it until it's smooth. That's how you know all the chocolate has melted.
I love it.
All right, that looks great.
Looks beautiful.
And finally, I'm gonna whisk in 10 tablespoons of very warm melted butter.
Right, you want it to be very warm because the chocolate's warm and you want the butter to incorporate evenly without clumping up and cooling.
These are my 2 favorite ingredients, butter
And chocolate.
and chocolate.
Nice.
That's right. All right, that is all set. The butter's mixed well. And that's really it.
So easy.
So easy. It's so easy. Now, we have to strain it.
Despite your best efforts, there will always be a few clumps of egg. So a strainer, just make sure you have an absolutely smooth chocolate filling.
Wonderful. Get this last bits from here. And finally, we're ready to put these 2 beautiful components together.
Each one perfectly cooked.
Our chocolate is smooth. It's ready to go into the tart.
Oh, goodness.
That's amazing.
Oh,
Pouring it in while it's still very warm is important. That's what helps get that nice, smooth texture. All right, so this has to cool on the counter for 20 minutes. Then it'll go in the fridge for no less than 2 hours, but up to 24 hours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we can have a make-ahead moment if we really
great.
want to.
But you don't want to cover it with plastic.
No, we don't want to cover it with anything. That's how we keep the nice, smooth luxe finish on top.
All right.
Yeah. I have something for you.
I hope it's a chocolate tart.
It is. And it's been 2 hours, so it's nice and cool.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna do this little trickaroo here of taking it out of the ring.
I love it. Here, I'll take this for you.
Thank you. All right, it's looking good.
It's gorgeous.
All right, so I'm just gonna use my small offset spatula just to loosen the tart in case, there's any stickiness on the bottom. Fortunately, there is not.
Nope, it's sliding right off.
Right off. We are so lucky.
It's such a foolproof dessert.
Yeah. All right, this looks beauteous. Okay, are you ready to eat it?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm ready to cut it. There we go. I heard a little snip in there. It lets me know I'm hitting the crust. All right.
That is a healthy piece, and I am happy for it. That is a beautiful profile.
This is the perfect crust. It's holding tight. It's not too tender. Whipped cream, milady.
Yes, please.
All right.
Oh.
There we go. And I'm sure you want some raspberries.
Just a few.
Okay.
The tart really doesn't need much garnishing because it's wonderful on its own, but I like a good berry.
There we go.
Oh, and that's why I love a pâte sucrée. You can get a perfect piece to match your bite. Unlike pie dough where it breaks and shatters and nope, perfect every bite.
It just doesn't compare. Oh boy.
Man, is that good. It's not complicated. It's just chocolate on a pastry crust, but each is so perfectly done. The filling has flavor, but it's not overwhelming. It's not super dark chocolate.
It gives the vibe that you took a lot of time to make it, and it's really very simple.
It's very sophisticated.
I like my desserts like I like my friends. Very classy.
Oh, très bien. So if you want to make this classic French dessert, start by using a food processor to work the butter and a whole egg into the dough. Roll the dough out before chilling and fitting it into the pan, and let the tart chill completely in the fridge before serving. From America's Test Kitchen, a very French recipe for a milk chocolate crémeux tart. I love it.
I can't get enough.
At America's Test Kitchen, recipe development is serious business.
Head over to americastestkitchen.com and unlock 14,000 expert-developed recipes and 8,000 unbiased product reviews, all rigorously tested by our team.
Access every episode of every season of your favorite cooking shows. That's 38 seasons of inspiration.
And with the ATK Members app, you'll have 30 years of expertise at your fingertips, anywhere, anytime. Join us and become a smarter cook.
Start your free all-access trial membership at americastestkitchen.com today.
The world of coconut has really changed. When I was a kid, we had one kind of coconut, sweetened shredded coconut for cakes. I now have at least a half dozen coconut products in my pantry, and we have almost a dozen that we use here in the test kitchen. So let me start with the simplest form, down here at the end. This is dried, unsweetened. We actually use this a lot when we want strong coconut flavor in baked goods. It is boiled and grated and dried, and it's got pure coconut flavor. We actually did a tasting, and a brand called Now Real Organic Foods is our favorite. This is the sweetened shredded coconut of my childhood. It's a little sticky because it goes into a sugar solution at some point or other. We like to use this in something where, like a macaroon, where you want that kind of chewy texture because it's got a chew to it that you don't get with the unsweetened. Next up, this is a relatively new entry on the scene. It's coconut flakes. And it's the same product, it's just sliced larger. Really nice on top of oatmeal, maybe sprinkled on a salad. It's a little too big to put into cakes or cookies. The texture doesn't work quite as well there. Next up, we have coconut chips. And as the name implies, this is actually kind of a snack food. You can eat it right out of hand. It's baked or fried rather than boiled, and then it's dried. It's also lovely in a trail mix or in your granola. So the first four things here on the table are all the coconut flesh that's processed in some way. Now we're going to start to talk about things that are made from other parts of the coconut. And let me start here with coconut water. This is actually the liquid inside the coconut, and this is actually from young green coconuts. It's mostly used now as a sports drink. You don't really cook with this. It's got a little bit of a floral coconut flavor, but why athletes like this is replenishes electrolytes. In terms of the kitchen, probably the liquid that we're using most often is coconut milk. And this is actually made by steeping equal parts of either hot milk or hot water in unsweetened coconut. And you see it's got a very thick texture here. This is what you're using in curries or coconut rice pudding. We do have a test kitchen favorite here. It's Arroy D, and because it's got a really creamy texture and a nice coconut flavor, but not overly coconut. Some coconut milks can be kind of too much, almost like suntan lotion coconut. You don't really want that when you're cooking. Next up, I've got coconut cream. Now this is the same thing as coconut milk, except they use 4 times as much coconut. So it's really thick. It's actually akin to the thing that's at the top of a can of coconut milk, except all of it's thick and super creamy and super rich. Here I've got cream of coconut. Now this is totally different than coconut cream. This is the thing you keep at the bar to make a pina colada, and it's sweetened. Totally not interchangeable with coconut cream. Next up, we have coconut oil, and this is refined coconut oil. You can buy either unrefined, which has a pretty strong coconut flavor. We prefer it refined, so it's more versatile. You can use it in vegan baking as a 1-for-1 replacement for butter. Coconut flour. This is extracted from the meat. It is a great gluten-free alternative. We like to pair it with almond flour, which is pretty dense and fatty, and this absorbs liquid. It works pretty well with the almond flour. It can be a little coconutty on its own. If you're going to keep coconut flour on hand for baking, it belongs in the freezer or fridge because it will go rancid pretty quickly. And last on the table, I've got coconut sugar. This is the only thing that's not made from the coconut itself. It's made from the sap from the flour. And it has got a caramel sweetness. The texture's drier than brown sugar and it's a little coarse. So if you want to use it in a recipe, let's say a cake recipe or a cookie recipe, we suggest you grind it in a spice grinder so that it gets a little bit finer, but it's lovely with those kind of caramel, coconutty notes in anything you want to bake. Coconut, what can't it do?
At Cooks Illustrated, we're food nerds. That's why every recipe we develop involves research, cooking science, and rigorous testing by our team of expert test cooks, before being tested by our dedicated community of 40,000 home cooks. Only the highest rated recipes earn a place in our award-winning magazine. Every issue features our latest recipes and discoveries, cooking tips, and equipment and ingredient reviews. Our step-by-step photos and hand-drawn illustrations show you exactly how to succeed. What you won't see, even a single page of advertising. We've worked for home cooks like you for over 30 years. So, are you ready to become the best cook you know? Subscribe to Cooks Illustrated magazine at cooksillustrated.com today.
On Saturday mornings during the summer, I get up super early so I can hit the local farmers market as soon as they open. And the prize for my punctuality is a pint, or maybe 2, of sweet cream ice cream. I love that unadulterated cream flavor. They always sell out early, so Dan is going to show me a version I can make at home so I don't have to get up so early.
I know, that's all I want is for you to have a nice restful Saturday.
You know, you really care.
I really do care. So we're gonna start with non-fat dry milk powder. This is a 1/2 cup plus 1/3 of a cup. Slightly unusual for home cooks making ice cream. It's really common in the commercial world.
Okay.
And what this is gonna do is actually gonna change the proportion of solids to liquid in the mix. To that, I'm gonna add 1/3 of a cup of sugar. Now, sugar obviously makes the ice cream sweet, but it has a far more important role in here. It actually depresses the freezing point of the mix, and it keeps more of the water from turning to ice in the first place. So it's really important to get the sugar right. So we have 1/3 of a cup there. And finally, 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. This is primarily just for flavor. So I'm gonna whisk this together. Milk powder, when it hits a liquid, has a tendency to clump up. So adding the sugar in there, it gets in the way of all of the milk powder, so it doesn't clump. Now it's time for our liquid component, and we're using a pretty classic ratio of 50% milk, whole milk, and 50% cream. So I'm gonna start here with just 1 1/4 cups of milk. We're gonna use a 1/4 cup later, and I'm gonna add 1 1/2 cups of heavy cream. I'm also gonna add 1/4 of a cup of corn syrup. Now, this is a really key ingredient as well. Corn syrup is less sweet than sugar, but it provides a lot of the same benefits. So it'll help control water. We'll get something that's really rich and creamy without a lot of iciness. So now we're gonna whisk in our milk powder, sugar, and salt mixture. So now I'm gonna heat this over medium-high heat. We're gonna bring it up to 190 degrees. It's gonna take probably 5 to 7 minutes. And there are 2 goals here. One is to dissolve that sugar, dissolve that milk powder, and the other is to get it to a hot enough temperature to gel our cornstarch, which is the next thing that we're gonna work on.
Okay.
Cornstarch is going to be one of our really important stabilizers here. So I have 5 teaspoons of cornstarch, and I'm adding it to that 1/4 cup of milk that I referenced before. And you'll see this base is going to be really thick compared to some other bases that you've worked with, and that's really nice. It's going to give a nice richness to the final ice cream.
Loving it.
I've been checking it, and I think we're very close. Let's look here. We're looking for 190, and that looks perfect. That's
Excellent.
great. So I'm just going to whisk the cornstarch slurry to recombine. Sometimes that cornstarch will settle out, and then we'll go right into our pot. I'm going to cook this for about 30 seconds, and I'm going to scrape along the bottom. Again, as it thickens, that can form a layer. It's really easy to have that happen. So scraping along the bottom is really good practice anytime you're working with, adding a slurry to something. And we're going to watch this thicken up really nicely in about 30 seconds. Okay, great. That looks beautiful. Turn off the heat, and we're going to strain this immediately. Obviously, there can always be little clumps when you're working with a slurry like this. It's just good practice to put it through a strainer. Beautiful. So we're gonna let this cool on the counter until it's no longer steaming, no longer super hot, and then pop it in the fridge for at least 6 hours. We wanna get it down to 40 degrees, which is the temperature of most fridges. So when this goes into our ice cream maker, we want it to freeze as quickly as possible. Fast freezing equals small ice crystals. So it's time to churn, and I'm gonna get the canister straight from the freezer.
Okay.
With this kind of ice cream maker, it's incredibly important that this is well chilled. This is all of your cooling power right here, and you don't get any more of it while it's sitting out here. So at least 24 hours, preferably up to 48 hours in the freezer ahead of time. We now have our fully chilled base.
Very cold.
And I just want to prove it to you. We've got 40 degrees. So an ice cream machine is actually a really simple thing. We've got our cooling surface. In this case, it's the canister that was in the freezer. Then we have a dasher, and this has a nice, relatively sharp blade, and that's gonna scrape the ice cream that solidifies on the walls into the center, and it's gonna keep doing that the whole process. So that goes in, and then we just put our lid on top. That holds the dasher centered, and the canister actually spins.
Perfect.
And then we just turn it on, and we're gonna get our base in there. And during this process, a couple of really key things are happening. We're incorporating some air, so it lightens the ice cream a bit, and we're creating lots of tiny little ice crystals. So we're gonna let this go until it's 21 degrees and soft serve consistency, which can take up to about 30 minutes.
Okay.
All right, so take a look in here. We've got some beautiful soft serve ice cream. Doesn't that look so good? So I'm just gonna take the temp, and again, we're looking for about 21 degrees, and we are right there. That's awesome. So I'm gonna turn this off. Take our top off. So take this out, and we'll pull up our dasher first. Isn't that so beautiful? I'm gonna scrape off the dasher first and get it right into our container. Just look at that. It's hard not to eat the ice cream at this point,
And you can, but like you said, it's soft serve at this point.
Yep. Final step before we pop it in the freezer is to just make sure you get rid of as many air pockets as you can. Pack it in there really nicely. And that looks great. Just pop on our lid. So we've got a quart of future hard ice cream here. We're gonna put it in the freezer for at least 2 hours to firm up. Overnight or longer is totally fine. We're gonna pop it in there, and then we can eat soon. So our ice cream has been hardening for 2 hours, and this is the most simple presentation possible because it's sweet cream ice cream, right? We wanna taste that beautiful dairy. No toppings, just some nice cones. And we'll get our scoop in there. Oh yeah, that's beautiful.
Lovely.
Cheers.
Cheers. Silky smooth.
Silky smooth. Yep.
Not a crystal insight.
Yep.
I love the flavor of sweet cream ice cream. It almost has a buttery taste to it because you really taste that good quality dairy. So how long does the ice cream stay good?
It can actually last a lot longer than a lot of homemade ice creams because we have so many good stabilizers in there. So 5 days in the freezer, and it's gonna be really good still.
I think I'm gonna sleep in this Saturday.
You are?
Yeah.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. Thanks, Dan. Well, if you want to make this beautiful ice cream at home, add milk powder to the base to reduce the water in the recipe. Use corn syrup for a creamy texture, and thicken the base with cornstarch before freezing. So from America's Test Kitchen, a simple summer pleasure, sweet cream ice cream. You can get this recipe and all the recipes from this season, along with product reviews and select episodes, on our website. That's americastestkitchen.com/TV. Thank goodness, I thought that was gonna be gone.
We hope you enjoyed this video as much as we enjoyed making it.
Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel.
And if you're ready to take your cooking to the next level, head over to americastestkitchen.com and get a free all-access trial membership.
While you're there, you can sign up for our free email newsletters and download our app.
With unlimited access to over 14,000 of our test kitchen recipes and 8,000 product reviews, you'll have everything you need to cook and learn.
So I ask, what are you waiting for?
Let's make something great together.